Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
The trust that previously existed between these two individuals and our team has been broken.
Jody Wilson-Raybould kicked out of caucus, dropped as the Liberal candidate in Vancouver-Granville. Also,
we do not have anyone in custody at this point.
The search for a suspect after a woman is shot in North Vancouver in broad daylight. And
there's a lot of hesitation in the market right now.
Sales slump. Home purchases at a 33-year low in Metro Vancouver.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. The Vancouver MP at the center of the SNC-Lavalin controversy has been kicked out of the Liberal caucus by Justin Trudeau. Former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould breaking the news on social media this afternoon after a conversation with the Prime Minister.
Jane Philpott, who resigned from cabinet in support of Wilson-Raybould, has also been thrown out. Trudeau emphasizing this move is his decision and that it all comes down to a matter of trust.
The trust that previously existed between these two individuals and our team has been broken. Whether it's taping conversations without consent or repeatedly expressing a lack of confidence in our government and in me personally as leader, it's become clear that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott can no longer remain part of our Liberal team.
In a tweet, Wilson-Raybould says, "I did what I was required to do and what needed to be done based on principles and values that must always transcend party. I have no regrets. I spoke the truth, as I will continue to do." She also says she will speak to supporters before deciding what to do next.
And this, of course, is big news on the political front. So let's go live now to Mira Bain. She's outside Jody Wilson-Raybould's Vancouver-Granville constituency office. Mira, how are people who live in the riding reacting to this news?
Well, Anita, there's mixed reaction here in Jody Wilson-Raybould's riding of Vancouver-Granville. I'm just outside our constituency office here on West Broadway. We spoke to some people, and some of them said that they didn't support her decision and what she was doing with the Liberal Party and how she was reflecting on the party. They say that she should have shown more loyalty, but yet we also spoke to other people who say that, they support her stance, her strong stance against what was happening with SNC-Lavalin. I want you to take a listen to what people had to say.
Shocking, but I think she has a lot of support, Canadian support, for being so forthcoming and honest and showing a lot of respect for Canadians. So.
It's a politic, and then politics has this kind of thing. You have to work together to solve the problems, and if you cannot for any capacity, I think you should leave.
I was surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised. Integrity is missing in politics. And for someone to stand up for what she believes in, it takes a lot of guts.
In a tweet, she has said that she's going to take time, as you mentioned, to reflect and also speak to supporters about her next move. It's unclear whether she'll be running as an independent in this riding and who will run for the Liberals in this riding as well.
And Mira, any sense of what kind of political fallout we're expecting from the Prime Minister's decision to kick Wilson-Raybould and Philpott out of caucus?
Well, Mike, we're about 6 months out of a federal election, and we spoke to political experts, and they say that that is plenty of time for the federal Liberals to rally. But they do wonder how Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will come back from this and how to deal with the damage to his brand, because he's projected himself as a feminist as well. Now he has 2 women out of his caucus as well. He's also received a lot of support from First Nations here in British Columbia. Now, people wonder how that's all going to play out in the next federal election. I want you to take a listen to political scientist Hamish Telford, and he talks about which political parties stand to gain.
I think if there's a natural beneficiary from the fallout, it would be the NDP. This gives them a real foothold. Of course, they've been struggling under the leadership of Jagmeet Singh, but he's now been elected to Parliament. And I think the sorts of issues that this affair has raised perhaps works to the benefit of the NDP. more so than the Conservatives, although the Conservatives have been hounding Justin Trudeau on this for weeks now.
So a lot to unpack here, and a lot of questions still remain. Mike?
All right, Mira. Thanks, Mira Baines, live in Vancouver, Granville tonight.
Well, home sales in Metro Vancouver last month plunged to levels seen in more than 3 decades.
Real estate experts point to government policies, while the province insists its housing measures are moderating the market.
Our provincial affairs reporter Tanya Fletcher has reaction now from realtors who are witnessing the dramatic sales drop-off firsthand.
March home sales in Metro Vancouver slowed dramatically to hit the lowest level since 1986. According to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, sales were down more than 31% compared to the same time last year. The drop is even more dramatic looking at the last decade. Last month's sales were 46% below the 10-year average for March.
Affordability is certainly a factor. However, there's a lot of hesitation in the market right now. There is some nervousness. So a lot of buyers are simply waiting on the sidelines and seeing what happens.
The board's president believes a big part of that hesitation stems from newly introduced housing measures from all levels of government.
The property transfer tax, school taxes, the speculation tax, empty home tax. Different policies are affecting different buyers in different ways. So borrowing policies are impacting more the entry level of the market, whereas some taxes are definitely impacting the higher end of the market.
BC's finance minister is confident their affordability plan is working.
Well, I've said all along we're looking for a moderation, and that's what we're seeing.
Carol James says it'll take some time to see the full effect of a range of policies. But are these numbers showing the intended desire? I mean, if home sales are stalling, but prices aren't dropping, is that really getting more British Columbians into affordable homes?
Well, you're not going to see a huge change overnight, but I think we're having some positive effect. You're slowly starting to see a bit of an uptick in vacancy rates. We're going to be watching it very closely.
Also watching the numbers closely are realtors.
I'm working 7 days a week, taking buyers out almost every day. So definitely you're just as busy, I would say, as always. It's just a lot harder to put a deal together.
He says the market is in a holding pattern while buyers and sellers wait to see what happens with home prices.
Buyers are obviously not willing to pay as much today. They want a discount. They see the writing on the wall. And then you have sellers that are still, a lot of them are, dreaming up these sky-high prices that just aren't realistic in today's environment.
Prices are starting to drop as well. The average price for all types of homes in Metro Vancouver is down to just over $1 million. That's nearly 8% lower than last year. It's unclear, though, just how low prices will have to go to get buyers off of the sidelines and into the housing market. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Victoria.
Well, an early start to the forest fire season here in BC. A wildfire burning near Squamish has quadrupled in size since just last night.
Yes, rain is expected to dampen worries in the coming days, but long term, the concern around forest fires is very real. The CBC's Briar Stewart has more.
As a helicopter hovers above the ground, crews practice how to descend into a fire zone, prepping for what could be another busy season.
We kind of use the hover exit as a last resort if there's no other options to get into the fire.
While they're training about 200 kilometers to the northwest, others are already dealing with the real thing as a fire burns near Squamish. In the past 2 years, BC has seen its worst wildfire seasons on record. Huge sections of the province burned and smoke wafted far and wide.
A little bit lighter,
which is why departments are now preparing for what could be round 3.
Set of coveralls that the guys would wear.
Gerald Baston is chief of the Agassiz Fire Department. In addition to fighting a large fire near the community last year, his team was deployed across the province.
We're definitely much busier and definitely have many more man hours and expect more from our volunteers and task our volunteers on a regular basis.
And the outlook isn't good. Northern BC is one of the places in Canada that's seeing some of the highest increases in temperature.
Even like 5 years ago, we're looking at the climate models, we were thinking we had time. Things were going to change gradually. Things changed just like that.
Fire ecologist Robert Gray says it's not enough for individual homeowners to try and take precautions. Entire forests have to be thinned out, and carbon emissions have to be significantly curbed.
So we have to have some really big transformational changes in a lot of different parts of the economy and society to solve this problem.
How confident are you that that's going to happen?
Not very. There's so much inertia against making big changes.
The type of drastic actions that he believes are really necessary to try and reverse the already destructive trend. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Hope, BC.
A Langara College student has been charged in connection with yesterday's fires at the school's main campus.
The 23-year-old will remain in custody until a bail hearing on Friday. As our Belle Puri reports tonight, the college remains closed.
The damage is easy to spot, most of it from sprinklers triggered by 2 deliberately set fires in the Langara College Science and Technology building, forcing students and faculty to flee.
As I was coming down those stairs, I could see just kind of black smoke, just a little bit of haze, not excessively, and then the sprinkler system just pouring water down everywhere.
Vancouver police say a suspect entered the college with an unknown number of improvised explosive devices.
There's flammable materials. At least one of them did have some sort of device attached to it as an ignition. 2 of those went off prior to the police arriving. We located at least 1 more device, and our bomb disposal unit neutralized that at the scene.
The suspect fled quickly after the initial explosion. Nasruddin Abu Samad Ali has been charged with 1 count of arson and 1 count of possession of incendiary material. The 23-year-old has been a student at Langara College for the last couple of years, although officials won't say in which faculty. The Surrey resident was arrested Monday afternoon at a Surrey SkyTrain station. The college remained closed as remediation and restoration crews assessed the damage.
Our Registrar Enrollment Services area on the main floor here has a fair bit of water damage. There's some water damage in offices in the 4th and 5th floor as well, but we're still doing, those are really initial assessments right now.
Small groups of faculty and staff this morning were escorted by security back into buildings to retrieve possessions left behind during the rush to safety.
Basically all my belongings, even my phone, my wallet, they're all still in my office.
Students were able to do the same in the afternoon. The college has been issuing regular online updates saying it understands the incident can be upsetting for many, and support is available through counseling services and the student union.
You go to school, you have it's pretty passive, you're getting your education, and then you have to worry about something like this happening, and it's kind of like, I don't know what to think.
It's the final week of classes. Exams are scheduled to begin this weekend. Some students simply move their learning outside. Other than the technology building, Langara will be open tomorrow. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A woman is on life support tonight after being shot on the North Shore.
It happened near a busy shopping district late this morning. CBC Vancouver News at 11 host Dan Burrett joins us now live with more. So Dan, what happened?
Anita, Mike, the Mounties and the Integrated Homicide Team are working to figure that out right now. Police were called to Lonsdale Avenue near 11th Street just before 11 a.m. after witnesses reported hearing gunshots. That's where officers found a badly injured woman. They rushed her to hospital. Officers closed off that area, and it's expected to be shut down for most of the rest of the day. IHIT then said it had been called in and reported that the victim had died, but that was incorrect. The force sent out an apology shortly after, saying the woman right now is on life support. Regardless, Mounties have said they do not believe there is a wider public threat. No one has been arrested either.
This is an isolated incident, and there is no reason for the public to have any concerns that anything else is stemming from this incident at this point.
Again, the victim is on life support. Police think it is an isolated shooting. Still upsetting for people. As we mentioned, it's in a very busy area not far from Lionsgate Hospital. We'll have any updates at 11 o'clock tonight. Anita, Mike?
Dan, thank you.
Violence in Surrey's Guildford neighborhood last night after a gang-related shooting and a multi-vehicle crash.
5 young men were arrested, but so far none have been charged. CBC's Yvette Brend has more.
I'm standing in front of a Surrey city block that's usually busy this time of day with people heading to work, children heading to school. But as you can see behind me, it's blocked off with police tape. Forensic investigators have been here for hours. They're combing the scene to try to figure out what exactly happened here. We know that it all began last night around 9:30 at a Guildford tavern where shots were fired and ended up here in a multi-car crash with one car actually embedded into a house. From this police barricade at 100th Avenue and 156 A Street, the aftermath is evident. You can see smashed cars. You can see that the street is littered with markers, yellow markers indicating bullets. Frustrated neighbors are trying to get to work past this city block that's behind police tape, and it's worrying some. They're scared by what's happened here and by what happened at the other scene. We do know that 2 men are now in hospital and that several more people are arrested and detained while they're questioned and while the RCMP try to piece together what led to this violent confrontation. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Surrey.
A pedestrian is dead after being hit by a car in East Vancouver. The 60-year-old man was walking near East 49th and Frederick Street when he was struck by a black BMW sedan. He was taken to hospital but later died. Police say the driver did remain at the scene. They're asking anyone driving with a dash cam in the area to try to contact them. 4 pedestrians have now been killed in Vancouver this year.
A baby girl has been seriously hurt at a daycare on Vancouver Island, and now the facility is under investigation. Sophie, who is under a year old, fell and hit her head on a coffee table. She is now at BC's Children's Hospital for treatment. A CT scan showing a possible skull fracture and bleeding. Police have yet to name the daycare involved. Island Health's licensing department is looking into the case.
Another case of measles in Metro Vancouver, and public health authorities warn the person infected rode transit across several municipalities while infectious. So if you rode Surrey's 323 bus on March 27th in the morning or afternoon, took the Expo line over the same spans, or visited the Ascenda School of Management, that's at 666 Burrard, you might have been exposed. In total, 22 measles cases have been reported in BC this year. Well, some elderly tenants of an apartment in East Vancouver are facing eviction over a rent increase they say they were not made aware of for months.
They tried reasoning with their property managers to allow them to pay the difference, but as the CBC's John Paulo Mendoza reports, the landlords wouldn't budge.
It's tight, it's messy, but it's been home for Miroslav Pinkowski, his 2 roommates, and his dog Soldier for the last 16 years.
The worst part is now I got dog. My dog is over 12 years with me. I don't know. Nobody gonna take it with me with the dog.
But now at the age of 65, he's getting evicted. Rent was just over $1,000 a month for this 2-bedroom unit in East Vancouver, but the building's property management company sent him an eviction notice in January, claiming he had an outstanding balance of just over $240. It was a rent increase he claims he was not made aware of.
Easy, no problem. If we knew that, we would never come to that point. We never knew. That's the thing is. I was completely unknown, surprised.
His roommates did manage to come up with the money, but he says the property managers didn't budge on their decision to evict them. The residential tenancy branch dismissed Pinkowski's case, and now he and his roommates have to leave the apartment by April 15.
He offered me the place, but look at what I walk into it. This is the situation, and if I have to go out of town for a job, I'll go out of town again.
In a letter to Pinkowski, the property management company says the notice of the rent increase was hand-delivered to him, but he says he never received it.
The rent is going up, and I know they're renovating and the suites, and they are going, instead 800, they are for 1,700. That means my suite is going to be much more.
Pinkowski and his roommates are looking anywhere they can to find help. They plan on writing a letter to the Attorney General's office about their case. But for now, the search for a new home begins. John Paulo Mendoza, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, another day of sunshine today.
Yes.
And I actually got to get outside, which was
well,
really
you got
nice.
it. You got to make time for that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's go to Colette Kennedy. She's here now with the first look at the weather.
Thank you, Anita. Well, we had that glorious ridge that had set up, and it was a blocking pattern and giving all those wonderful days of sunshine, and then it's been deteriorating. And because of that, we see these pulses coming in, and we'll get some of those rain showers pushing through, continuing through the overnight hours, some of the cloud cover already riding in. So overtaking the island, sometimes a little bit heavier, so some heavier periods of rain overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, and then becoming more some intermittent showers as we go into tomorrow afternoon through the metro area and beginning to push inland as well. So still wet through the day into the afternoon Wednesday, and there's going to be pulse after pulse that will be coming in with this system. So because of that, we'll be seeing several days worth of rain. I'll get into more detail on that coming up a little later in the show, but just showing you some of the amounts possible just as we go into Thursday. Then we'll get a little bit of break in the precipitation, then it comes back once again. But even just by then, we could be seeing close to 25 millimeters of rain. So it will be adding up. Overnight tonight, 7, then tomorrow morning, 10 degrees, the rain a little more significant, and then tapering off to a few showers, 13 degrees, the high for tomorrow afternoon.
That had to come to an end sometime. Thanks, Colette. And just a reminder, you can also watch CBC Vancouver News at 6 on our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And if you are watching us right now on Facebook or YouTube, stick around because we are also live during the commercial break.
Well, for periods of time on flights across the Atlantic Ocean, aircraft can't be tracked by air traffic controllers, but that's about to change. Coming up, the new satellite system that should mean better safety in the sky.
Thanks so much for staying with us and watching on all of our streams. Now, Ubisoft Montreal is one of the biggest names in video game development, just one of this country's many contributions to the industry.
And to foster the next generation of talent, the studio is hosting a competition with thousands of dollars in prize money up for grabs. So we sent the CBC's Simon Nakashny to check it out.
Video games have come a long way since players maneuvered primitive pong paddles. What will they look like in the future? That will be up to budding game designers like Ricardo Ligener.
The game is Fast and Furious. So the game is centered around the local players who are tethered by a rope, and they have to make their way through an obstacle course to the end.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
it slides like on the button.
And it's the rope kind of stretches.
Yeah. So the rope
onto
is
the button. Okay. Oh,
and we can obviously fall to our.
Oh, that's. Sorry, I killed us.
Ligener is one of 168 students from 12 universities duking it out for $22,000 in prize money. They only had 10 weeks to create their pixelized prototypes before handing the controllers over to the judges.
It's amazing. It's amazing how year after year, it's the 9th edition. It's 9 years we've been doing that. Year after year, the quality benchmark is just getting higher and higher.
This year's theme was Showtime, and these creators used that as a springboard to all kinds of game concepts. Some futuristic, some not so futuristic.
The game is called Channel Surfers because of, channel surfing, and also our characters have surfs and can actually surf through the levels. I think gaming industry is always changing. It's like there's codes and all, but it's always evolving.
Part of that evolution is who's actually making the games. This year, nearly a quarter of the participants are women.
I don't think it's like most different to be a man. Just have to put our feet down more.
But even as things change, some things remain the same. A controller, a screen, and most important of all, addictive fun. Simon Nakashny, CBC News, Montreal.
I'm not much of a gamer myself. You put a controller in the hand and I have no idea what to do with it, but I know that you...
Well, the only thing I can relate to, I mean, this is fantastic. It's growing like crazy, but the Pong thing I can relate to at the beginning.
No idea what that is.
Well, yes, this is a long time ago. But it was a big deal. It was just the two little dials, and it was back and forth.
Oh, that's okay. No, I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I know what that is.
On the old black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that.
All right, we'll have more news coming up in just a few moments. More and more Canadians are complaining to the country's telecom watchdog about their service providers.
In fact, almost 10,000 customers filed formal complaints in just the past 5 months.
As Erica Johnson from our Go Public team explains, the complaints are about all sorts of problems.
The Commission for Complaints for Telecom Television Services handles complaints when consumers can't get issues with their telecom service providers resolved on their own. In its mid-year report released this morning, tracking complaints it received between last August and this January, the mediator says almost 10,000 consumers complained. That's up 44% over the same period last year.
It's unfortunate that we see the same issues on a regular, recurring basis.
The issues people have complained about in the past continue to plague the industry. Incorrect charges top the complaints, followed by non-disclosure of terms or misleading information, and poor quality of service. Matthew Tomlinson filed a complaint last fall after he spent 5 months battling Bell. A customer service rep promised him one TV package, but signed him up for another, costing him more.
Every time they told me that something was being fixed, it was never fixed. Every single time, none of those deadlines were met.
After he contacted the telecom mediator, Bell fixed the problem and told Go Public this kind of consumer experience is rare. We apologize and have provided coaching to ensure these mistakes are not repeated. A telco watchdog says seeing the number of complaints continue to climb is frustrating and suggests the status quo isn't working.
I think fundamentally the biggest problem with our system right now is that there aren't any strong penalties in place for the telecoms when they do something wrong.
Recently, the telco regulator released its report after conducting a public inquiry into sales practices. It found consumers are being harmed and recommended more safeguards. Protections Matthew Tomlinson says are badly needed to reduce customer frustration.
We don't want to be spending all this extra time in order to deal with a problem that ultimately, in the end, only took about 10 minutes to fix.
In terms of which telcos received the most complaints, Bell topped the list, followed by Rogers, Cogeco, TELUS, and Freedom Mobile, owned by Shaw. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, hard to believe, but it's been 5 years since Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 went missing, with 239 people on board. And despite a massive effort to find the vanished plane, it remains arguably the world's most baffling aviation mystery.
But a new technology may make such mysteries a thing of the past. Ian Hannamansing, co-host of The National, has the details now about this major advancement with a significant Canadian connection.
It may not look like it, but what's happening in this room, the Gander, Newfoundland Air Traffic Control Center, is a historic advance for aviation.
RAFM 1815 Delta 33.
For the first time anywhere, these controllers know the exact location of all of the planes on these screens, even jets halfway across the Atlantic. You may be surprised by this, but international flights are often beyond the reach of ground radar stations. In those places, and that's about 70% of the world, the planes update their locations only every 10 to 15 minutes. And because of that lack of detail, flights are kept far apart in the sky, up to 160 kilometers.
Ignition, liftoff of Falcon 9.
All of that changed with a series of SpaceX rocket launches, including this one last January, placing 66 satellites in low Earth orbit. Those satellites are powering a new navigation network called Aireon, partly owned by Navcan, the company responsible for air traffic control in this country. With Aireon, planes can automatically and continuously transmit their exact position, altitude, direction, speed, no matter where in the world they are. That stream of data is now being tested by controllers guiding planes across the North Atlantic.
You can't underestimate how important this is and how this changes how we will approach safe and efficient flight, not only in Canada, in Canadian airspace, but around the world.
Air traffic controllers can now reduce the separation between planes over the North Atlantic to just 25 kilometers. More efficient flight paths will save time and fuel. And it's not just people at Navcan, the part owner and early adopter, who are excited.
It's my opinion that this is as big of a change in aircraft tracking as radar was decades ago.
Howard Slutskin says beyond the benefits on routine flights, when things go wrong, precise tracking could be life or death.
If there's an emergency, search and rescue teams are going to be able to get there and know exactly where they're going, where before they were guessing in many cases. Time is of the essence always in search and rescue.
But even in tragedies like the Ethiopian Airlines crash, where there were no survivors, it was Aerion that provided detailed information on the Boeing MAX 8's flight path that was available even before the data in the flight recorders would have been recovered. But it is the routine flights that carry the greatest benefit for this new system. NavCan estimates airlines will save about $400 in fuel for each transatlantic flight, and you can multiply that by up to 1,500 flights a day.
Amazing technology, for sure. Well, the CBC's Ian Hanneman-Singh reporting on that story from Vancouver tonight.
Criticism on the heels of a report showing Canada is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world. Some calling the country slow to act. That's coming up.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Taping conversations without consent, or repeatedly expressing a lack of confidence in our government and in me personally as leader.
Vancouver MP Jody Wilson-Raybould has been tossed out of the Liberal caucus, not allowed to run with the party in the upcoming federal election. Jane Philpott has also been moved out. All of this, of course, stemming from the controversy around SNC-Lavalin. The Prime Minister says trust has been broken.
This is an isolated incident, and there is no reason for the public to have any concerns.
A woman is in critical condition tonight after being shot outside a gym in North Vancouver. It happened in broad daylight along Lonsdale. Police are now on the hunt for a suspect.
There is some nervousness, so a lot of buyers are simply waiting on the sidelines and seeing what happens.
Home sales in Metro Vancouver dropped to a 30-year low in March. Just over 17,000 homes sold in the region, down 30% from last year. Now, despite lackluster activity from buyers, there was an increase in the number of homes listed. The benchmark price for a condo in Vancouver dropping to around $650,000. For a detached home, $1.4 million. And Canada's Environment Commissioner is calling out federal governments, past and present, for failing to take enough action to prevent climate change.
As the CBC's Salima Shivji reports, the criticism comes as a new report shows Canada is heating up twice as fast as the rest of the world.
Glaciers disappearing, sea levels rising. The report that shows Canada's warming is at more than twice the global rate paints a stark picture. Largely irreversible damage that means more coastal flooding and forest fires raging in our future. The federal environment minister says the science proves the need for more action.
I think our report yesterday showed that it's not just about Canada acting, the whole world needs to act.
But right on the heels of that report, another message, this time from the Environment Commissioner, who works in the Auditor General's office. Canada's not doing nearly enough to reduce emissions. She says that slow action is disturbing.
Our audit on adaptation indicated that Canada, the federal government, was not ready to adapt. Our audits on whether or not we would achieve our goals on reducing greenhouse gases, we haven't achieved those reductions.
But McKenna says the government's plan is working.
We need to be implementing our plan. Our plan gets us 3/4 of the way there. 2030 is a number of years off, but look at what we've done, over 50 measures. So putting a price on pollution.
She points to not only the carbon tax, which the Conservative Party has labeled a tax grab, but investments in renewable energy and efforts to phase out coal. The minister says such a major transition takes time.
The time for timid is over. We need
time the NDP thinks the warming world doesn't have.
When will this government take bold action to take on catastrophic climate change?
I absolutely agree we need bold action, and that's exactly what we do.
Environmentalists point out Canada has missed every single target it has set to reduce emissions, and it's still 90 million tons short of the next one in 2030. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
6:36 Tuesday evening. A live look south from our tower camera up Cambie Street tonight. Well, they say all good things must come to an end, and that's the case with our amazing stretch of weather. When the rain will return next.
A risky move here by a Mission woman trying to help a skunk with a Burger King cup stuck on its head. But good news, she was able to get it off and avoid being sprayed. So now she is set to receive a Compassionate Action Award from PETA, which says if she hadn't intervened, the skunk could have died of starvation. Oh,
Yeah.
risky indeed, but nice of her to free the little guy.
Nice that she's being recognized for it. I read somewhere, she did an interview and she said she thought at the time that the skunk actually knew what she was trying to achieve, which is why it may not have
Makes sense.
sprayed her. Exactly.
Smart skunk.
All right, let's get a look at our weather forecast now. Here is Colette.
Thank you, Mike. I thought we'd start off, have a little look at the almanac in terms of the record high. Okay, not quite there. Yeah, today, 1992, this was set just over 22 degrees. Our average high, it's closer, if we round this up, to just about 12 degrees. And by the way, the low, right around 4 degrees. Record rainfall, though, well, 1988, 21.4 millimeters. We're not going to break that record, but we certainly have rain coming in, and we're going to see several days of this kind of off and on. There'll be some breaks in the precipitation, but impulse after impulse kind of moving in, bringing us the showery activity. So as we roll this forward through the overnight, you see at times we get into some of the darker greens here on the contour and some of the heavier rains. We'll be seeing pockets of that even into tomorrow morning. It's as we get past the lunch hour, it will become a little more intermittent, breaking up, still that cloud cover hanging in there, but a few showers here and there becoming more scattered. So the more significant stuff is tonight, but especially for tomorrow morning. Then from there, what we find is as we go into Thursday, I think we'll see some breaks in the precipitation, might even get a little bit of sun kind of peeking through, some sunny breaks, but there'll still be quite a bit of cloud cover, and then the next wave will be moving in. So as it comes, more rainfall, as we look at the long range and go a little closer to being provincial here, you see the breaks we get into Friday, though, another band coming in, and that'll be one of the days we'll see some more significant stuff. In fact, Friday into the weekend for Saturday as well. Looking at your forecast for Prince Rupert, 15 degrees for you tomorrow with rain showers. Could be some sunny breaks in there as well. Now for Prince George, you're still insured some sunshine, just enough into the interior and far enough to the north. 12 degrees, mostly sunny skies there. Whistler, we're looking at rain, 9 degrees, 10 with the rain showers by afternoon, Port Hardy, and even that chance into Kamloops and Cranbrook. And your temperatures coming down a little bit as well tomorrow from where they were today, especially losing that sunshine. The forecast, Comox, 13 degrees with the rain tomorrow. A look at Victoria. You may see some sunny breaks there too. 15 for the high, and into Abbotsford and Hope, the high temperature just up around 14 degrees. Coming back into Vancouver, we find tomorrow's high 13, about 10 millimeters, mostly coming in to the morning hours. We'll be looking at Thursday. We get a little rest from what's happening off the coastline there, and then into Friday, here comes the next storm, a windy day, some more significant periods of rain we'll be seeing into Friday, 13 for the high, Saturday 11, still have the risk of showers into Sunday, but we're beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel, Monday and Tuesday, a chance for seeing some sunshine along with some scattered showers in there. Back to you.
Look forward to that. Thanks, Colette.
And now she's gone. Vancouver MP Jody Wilson-Raybould's time is up as a Liberal officially kicked out of the caucus today, along with one of her allies. So how is Ottawa reacting after the break?
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Anita, Bathe, and Leanne Young will host Vancouver Magazine's 30th Annual Restaurant Awards on April 29th. This award serves as the definitive list of the best places to eat in the city. And CBC Vancouver is a proud sponsor of SFU Public Square's Community Summit. This year's event will explore how disinformation is impacting our society and shaping our world. For more, check us out at cbc.ca/BC.
Well, the SNC-Lavalin controversy has come to a head in Ottawa today as Justin Trudeau has kicked out 2 former cabinet ministers from the Liberal Party.
Vancouver MP Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott are now sitting as independents, even though, as Katie Simpson tells us, both told the party they wanted to stay.
The Prime Minister is trying to make the case that he had no choice but to act.
The trust that previously existed between these 2 individuals and our team has been broken. Whether it's taping conversations without consent or repeatedly expressing a lack of confidence in our government and in me personally as leader, it's become clear that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott can no longer remain part of our Liberal team.
Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott were both told this afternoon they had officially been kicked out of caucus, a decision that came after a series of meetings where Liberals raised concerns about Wilson-Raybould's decision to secretly tape a key conversation in the SNC-Lavalin affair.
When that cabinet minister is the Attorney General of Canada secretly recording the clerk of the Privy Council, it's unconscionable.
Both Wilson-Raybould and Philpott put up a fight to the very end.
I face each day as it comes and continue to work as hard as I can for the people of Vancouver Granville as a member of the Liberal Party.
The former Attorney General made a broad appeal to her colleagues with a defiant 2-page letter pleading her case, while Philpott tried a more personal approach.
I have to go into a meeting. I have to go into a meeting. It's starting right now. So.
At an earlier emergency meeting of Ontario Liberal MPs, she told the room she has confidence in the Prime Minister and that she wanted to stay. Both pitches ultimately failed.
Trust has been broken by 2 members. It's not a, it's kind of a sad night, but it is something we had to do.
Prime Minister's made a very difficult decision, something that none of us are particularly happy about, but we need to move on.
In a statement tonight, Philpott says she is profoundly disheartened and denies she is disloyal. On the contrary, I recommended that the government acknowledge what happened in order to move forward. In tweets, Wilson-Raybould says she will take time to reflect on what has happened. I have no regrets. I spoke the truth, as I will continue to do. Justin Trudeau will now try to do everything he can to put this saga behind him and his team, something he's been unable to do for nearly 2 months.
Our political opponents win when Liberals are divided. We can't afford to make that mistake. Canadians are counting on us.
Of course, all of this began with Wilson-Raybould's allegation that she was pressured to consider a deal for SNC-Lavalin by the Prime Minister's office.
As David Cochran tells us today, we've gotten a closer look into the text conversations at the center of that allegation.
At the heart of Jody Wilson-Raybould's story is that she lost her job as Attorney General because of SNC-Lavalin.
That I stated I believe the reason was because of the SNC matter. They denied this to be the case.
I firmly believe that nothing inappropriate occurred here, and nothing inappropriate was alleged to have occurred until after the cabinet shuffle.
Jerry Butt sent notes and text messages to the Justice Committee to bolster his claim. Text related to a December 5th meeting where their testimony is at odds.
Minister Wilson-Raybould solicited the meeting with me. She also raised the subject with me.
I wanted to speak about a number of things, including bringing up SNC and the barrage of people hounding me and my staff.
We parted that meeting as friends and colleagues and exchanged personal text messages a couple of hours later. I wrote, "Nice to see you." She replied, "Nice to see you too. Thanks for the convo. Please say hello to the PM."
The texts from that night are as Butts said. No obvious signs of tension, no mention of SNC. A follow-up text from Wilson-Raybould on December 11th doesn't mention it either. On January 7th, the Prime Minister called Wilson-Raybould on vacation in Bali to discuss the cabinet shuffle. Butts listened in and took notes. I feel I'm being shifted out of justice for other reasons, Butts quotes her as saying. We would not be doing this if it weren't for Scott's decision, Trudeau replies, referring to Scott Bryson's resignation from cabinet. I don't agree, she replied. That's not how we change people's lives. There's no mention of SNC in Butts' notes or in the text exchange that followed, though Wilson-Raybould raised objections. At the time, Indigenous protesters were blocking a gas pipeline. She raised this, not SNC. Pushing me out, which will be the perception whether true or not, is terrible. It will be confounding and perplexing to people. This is not about me. This is about an approach to Indigenous peoples. The bulk of the text show the minister and Butts trying to connect across multiple time zones. The tone seems cordial, but on January 12th, it changes. What is being proposed is a mistake, she texts. There is no way to fully explain this. My eyes are wide open on this shift. The night before the shuffle, she follows up. No, I will be prepared for tomorrow, and I know why this is happening. Butts replies, yes, you do, because the PM told you why this is happening. We plan on saying the truth. Scott's departure left a large hole. At no point in these text exchanges does she directly mention SNC or a DPA, two things Ottawa hasn't stopped talking about since. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, controversy is nothing new to the Trump presidency, but now yet another scandal at the White House.
Longtime staffer says dozens of security applications she and her colleagues rejected were subsequently overturned by someone higher up. As Ellen Morrow reports, House Democrats are vowing to subpoena her boss.
Today's hearing was all about getting information on the White House security clearance process under President Trump. It comes after a whistleblower from the White House Personnel Security Office went to members of the House Oversight Committee, saying that she and her colleagues had denied dozens of security clearances to White House employees over national security concerns. She says those initial denials were then overturned by people higher up despite those security concerns. Today, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee praised the whistleblower, a woman named Tricia Newbold, for coming forward.
This lady was scared. You hear me? She's scared. She's small in stature, and she's already seen what is going on in the White House. She was scared to death.
There's speculation that one of these clearance holders may be President Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. The New York Times has already reported that President Trump intervened personally to get Kushner his clearance. Kushner was asked about the issue on Fox News.
Over the last 2 years that I've been here, I've been accused of all different types of things, and all of those things have turned out to be false.
But Democrats say they're worried about the process.
Every day that we go on without getting to the bottom of this matter is a day that we are putting hundreds, if not potentially thousands of Americans at risk.
While the sparring continues on Capitol Hill, supporters of the Trump administration point out that it is within the president's power to determine who has a security clearance. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Well, a new report says Northwest Canada will warm the most in the coming years. It's not a surprise for Yukon residents who've seen record-breaking temperatures throughout March. We're going to take you to balmy Whitehorse right after the break. Yeah, it's really relevant here in Metro Vancouver.
I'm calling from CBC Vancouver News.
There are so many stories in this city to tell and to explore.
Are you available for an interview?
Our listeners deserve an explanation.
That's just anecdotal.
It's really the perfect place to live.
The fact that people come from all over and want to make a home here, that says a lot about the city.
A shocking report says northern Canada is warming at 3 times the rate as the rest of the world.
For many Yukoners, it confirms what they've already seen as they tackle an unnervingly warm and early spring.
CBC's Alexandra Byers has more from Whitehorse.
Flames from controlled burns, the earliest ever in the city of Whitehorse. It's an effort to get ahead.
Well, we've been starting to worry a little bit faster. We're probably a little, I would say, 3 weeks ahead of schedule. So things are a lot drier and the moisture content's evaporating a lot faster. So it is a bit of a concern this year.
Fire experts say the territory is especially vulnerable to fire right now. The month of March was 5 to 10 degrees warmer than usual. Communities across Yukon seared 95 new temperature records into the books. In much of the territory, the snow is gone. Rivers are flowing weeks earlier than usual. For many Yukoners, it's been unsettling, and questions of climate change have been front of mind. Monday's leaked federal report slammed it all home for one city councillor.
These changes are profound and have a significant and alarming implications for our infrastructure, our First Nations traditions and culture, and the natural environment for which our wilderness city is named.
Roddick asked, should Whitehorse declare a climate change emergency?
If we don't take action now to avert these impacts, we're going to be in big trouble.
A growing list of Canadian cities, big and small, have recently declared climate change emergencies. The motion isn't a state of emergency and wouldn't free up extra funds. Instead, it would make the issue an urgent priority. Roddick will make the official notice of motion next week, and Whitehorse City Council could declare a climate change emergency before the end of the month. Alexandra Byers, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Lots of climate talk after this report's come out, so everyone sort of needs to do their part.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going, really? We're heating up like way faster than, or at least the north is, way faster than the rest of the planet?
And you just don't think it because of where we are.
Yeah, it is alarming, that's for sure. Well, you can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC.
Yes, and our next local news is right here with Dan Burrett, 11 o'clock after the National. Have a good night.
Good night.